Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday night, which means it is So Real Suneil time here on the Jack Hammer Show. We usually call this the Throwback Show, but since we're not talking about throwback anymore, I just went with the Jack Hammer Show tonight. I don't know why, but I'm Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and with me, as always, on Tuesday nights, it's been a while since we've been together. It's fun, though. So Real Suneil from So Real Sports Talk TV. How you doing, Suneil?
I'm doing fantastic, Jack. Look, the streets were talking, and they were like, yo, Suneil, what's going on with you and Jack? And I'm like, nothing's going on with me and Jack. Then why haven't you been on Jack's show in quite a bit of time? It's not like he isn't streaming. It's not like he's not doing shows. It's just for some reason, y'all stopped working together. And I was like, look, just give us some time. Just give us some time. And now we're here. So the streets can stop talking. Jack and Suneil are back.
That's right. This shows you why I can do these shows when I'm not getting home at 5:30 at night after a day of spending a day in Santa Clara at training camp and being tired from all that. That's why we haven't been doing the show. It's just been It's been a grind. We get done what I can, getting home and doing some other stuff. I'm in the process of moving too, so that adds to it. So a lot of stuff going on that all plays into it. So real quick though, before we get started, we have Savory Movie 197 says, "Hi Jack, how you doing?" Raphael 5629ers. He's got the little dollar sign next to his name because he's a member of the Toolbox, and he says, "What's up, Jack, Suneil, and members of the Toolbox and everyone? Good to have you on board, Raphael." He's the one who always keeps me on track. Make sure I let everybody know to like and subscribe and all those fun things. Alan, he's a good guy that follows the show. Says, "Good evening, hello, faithful and members of the Toolbox as well. What a good game on Friday night. Debo, that like button. There you go." And then we've got NorCal 2225 says thoughts on the 49ers releasing Robert Kimdichie. We can get into that in a little bit. Matthew Mears wants to know who the next lazy boy QB coach to tell Lance how to throw is. Who is that's going to be? We've got VA Niner Faithful says, "Jack and Suneil, my dudes, looking forward to the great content. Glad to have you on board." And then we have the another Hammer says, "Let's go Niners." Patobo Hammer says, "Let's go Niners." Lucas Pesci, who's coming to us from Austria. This guy's he's with us all the time on these shows. It's fantastic. It's super late over there right now. And then last but not least, the everybody's favorite special teamer, member of the Toolbox, Bryant Culp says, "Let's go Jack." Good to have you on board, Bryant. And let's get into the show, Suneil. There's more of them over here. Look at all these. There's all kinds of them over here. Holy moly.
You're a popular man. You're a popular man, my friend.
I guess we even got James Foster, who I know I always bring him up because he follows the Press Democrat. He comments over there quite a bit. Debuda says, "What's up, fellas?" Chris Royal, another member of the Toolbox. "What's up, gentlemen?" It is quite a group in here today. Okay, let's get started with the content. We'll get to.
We have to perform, Jack. We have to perform. We go.
Hey, I gotta keep. That's where you are, right? You're playing hurt today. So
right.
Look at this guy. Look at this little punk come in and he says, "Where is it? I lost it." Says it's my two least favorite 49ers people. Look at that guy. Look at that guy.
By the way, Rohan's gonna probably be on my channel tomorrow at 7. We're gonna get back at it. So that's my little brother. He can't even talk mess the right way because we still know it's all love from Rohan.
No, he's a good dude. He's a really good guy. I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. It was a lot of fun to talk football with him because he'd been out at training camp too. So it was a good time. Good time. Let's get into it. We haven't talked since before training camp started. I wanted to ask you, what is your biggest takeaway from? Let's look at everything. We have 14 training camp practices and a preseason game. What are your biggest takeaways so far over the last almost 3 weeks?
I have one, Jack, that sticks out the most, and it's been kind of something that I've been talking about throughout the offseason. I think this front office was getting a lot of slack for their inability to go quote unquote all in. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes as the faithful, we don't understand the bigger picture, or it's hard to see the trees or the forest amongst the trees type of situation. And just the way that this team drafts, Jack, is phenomenal to me. I mean, how many first year, second year guys are playing impactful roles this training camp, the preseason, that are looking to be starters this year? I mean, obviously we talk about a guy like Spencer Burford, who's a 5th round draft pick, comes in and solidifies himself as the right guard. He's probably outside of Trent Williams, the guy the faithful is the most excited about because he's pancaking dudes out there, right? He's somebody that was kind of like a forgotten pick, right? Not too many people knew about him before. 49ers isolated him, picked him, and now he's going to more than likely be a starter there on the offensive line for who knows how many years, right? You talk about a guy like Sanak, another fifth round draft pick that you went ahead and cut, who everybody thought was going to be the starting nickel corner. This guy is playing so well as a rookie that they're like, we don't even need Darquez anymore. Like, we know this is the guy, we trust him, and he's gonna be there on the roster. And there's more and more. TDP is looking good, Drake Jackson's looking good. Like, it's just phenomenal to me how well this team drafts and develops, Jack. And I think that, like, that's one thing that I think our fan base takes for granted, because this team will continue to be very good because of the way they're able to draft, because you can keep replacing guys that you don't want to overpay for with young talent that you can develop that is on team-friendly type deals. And even though, it kind of sounds like, it is a salary cap league. Obviously, we want everybody to go make the type of money that they want, but at the end of the day, it is a business as well as a sport. So I don't know. Like, it's been something that's been trending that way for the past few years in my eyes. I think at this point, I would say I don't see another team that drafts better than the 49ers, to be honest, Jack. And that's including what happened in 2017 with their first round. You know what I mean? Like, if that 2017 first round didn't exist, who in the last 5-6 years has drafted better than the 49ers? Probably nobody.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't know. I don't spend enough time looking through all the drafts. I know when you look at the some of the things like PFF puts together, or some of these other models that they put together based off of to try to show who's doing the best in terms of drafting and those types of things. The Niners are usually up there. I think you make a really good point about how many good players they're getting out of this draft class. They're getting 2 starters right now that we know of, or we expect, which is Sam Womack in the slot, and then Spencer Burford at right guard. Those are 2 guys that we expect that right now, as it stands, looks like they're going to be starters week 1 for the 49ers. And that's a guy who, those are 4th and 5th round draft picks. That isn't even their top draft picks. Right. And if they can get those kind of things out of it, if Drake Jackson can be the guy who he's starting to maybe look like he's going to be as well, where he can be a starter down the road, next year. Danny Gray might, be able to be, he's going to be a good complement. Maybe he's going to be the guy that takes over for, who knows what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk and his contract, right? Or maybe he supplants at some point Juwan Jennings as the 3rd guy. Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of things, but the way that this draft looks, there's been a lot of talk about the 49ers using 3 first-round picks to get the quarterback. If these guys that they've drafted, we start looking at the draft class of last year and this year and how many starters they have, that's a little unusual. And it kind of makes those lost first-round picks not such a big deal anymore, because you have good starters that you're picking up in other rounds. And the 49ers, there was a narrative early on about these guys not being very good, but you take a step back, and they've put together a damn good roster, I think. And we saw it on.
And I think, in training camp, guys may not have looked as good or whatever. It's because both sides of this team is very good. It's hard to look good when you're looking at a team that's so explosive on offense. And obviously, hands down, San Francisco is going to be top 5 defenses most likely, if not fighting for number 1. Like, it's just remarkable to me. And you finally have a young quarterback that is ascending. Whether or not he's there yet is up for debate, absolutely. But it's not like you can't see that he's a first-round talent. It's not that you can't see that he can do what this team needs to do to be highly competitive. And he's still one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league, if not the youngest. And it's just phenomenal what they've been able to do with the high-end talent that they've been able to get through the draft. And like I said, they're not one of these teams that has to go out and sign 2, 3, 4, 5 big free agents, and obviously that's not a knock. Like the team like the Rams, obviously that's their route, and it ended up with the Super Bowl for them. So more power to them. But understanding your strengths, understanding what you could get away with because of the talent that you have, this front office, the scouting team, whomever's making the decisions as far as drafting, whether it's Lynch, Adam Peters, Kyle Shanahan, or a combination of all of them, I hats off to them, Jack, because to me, I'm more than excited year after year, and I have more trust than ever that these guys are going to make the right decision when the draft comes around.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. They've put together a roster that makes a lot of sense, that has a lot of depth to it. The only place that I would say that they're maybe lacking depth is at the cornerback position on the outside. That's the only place that I think that they're lacking depth. I think at safety, they have 3 guys that are pretty good there, maybe 4, but more. I don't know about Tavares more, but they have good depth everywhere. I think their offensive line, even for the concerns on their offensive line, that offensive line is going to be better than people thought of 2 months ago, and there's been a constant source of discussion, and I agree again with you in that I feel like this has been a team that's been put together very well. End of the day, it's going to come down to if the quarterback can make the plays or not, because it's not fair to say that about Trey Lance because he is in his first year as a starter, but that's just the way it is in the NFL.
That's the position.
Yeah, at some point your quarterback has to make the play in order to, if even you go back to 2019, even right. The quarterback really didn't have to do too much in 2019 to get the 49ers to the Super Bowl, but the quarterback couldn't make the play. The quarterback that made the plays won the game, and the quarterback that couldn't make the plays was the one that lost. And that was
exactly.
And that's in the same thing last year against in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. It always comes down to the quarterback at the end. While there's a whole lot of other things that can help get you there, the quarterback at some point has to make a play to get to win the championship.
There's no handicap for age, right? You don't get a mulligan just because it's your first year.
Hey, that's the way I look at it, and I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm full of beans. Because the way that I see it is, once you're the starting quarterback in the NFL, you get looked at as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't really care if you've been in the league for 1, 2, 5, 10 years. When you're just starting quarterback, you get judged against all the other starting quarterbacks.
And that's not to say you feel like people can't get better, but if you're judging this season, and it is going to come down to, did he make enough plays? Did Lance not make enough plays? Whether or not this team ends up, winning a Super Bowl, or just making the playoffs, or God forbid, not even that. So it is going to come down to his shoulders. Now, does that mean that you give up on him? No, he's obviously young, but at the end of the day, he still has to make plays. This team can't win without a competent quarterback.
No, absolutely. And I understand there's going to be some ups and downs. It's going to be, it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster, but the 49ers fans have been on a roller coaster since 2018 at different times. 2019 was a roller coaster. 2021 was definitely a roller coaster when it comes to the quarterback position. So there's going to be some of that. At the end of the day, I think you're going to see a guy who's going to be able to manage this offense, get things done. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. David Villa says, Mr. Thorhammer, what's up, buddy? And so real. Absolutely. Hey, David, good. It's going to be good. I think there's a lot of positives. For me, the biggest takeaway has just been the way the team's come together. Lance is growing. I know, his stats. People get really frustrated with camp stats, whatever. I see a guy that's improving. His numbers have gone up. He's done better during the move the ball periods at times when it's been like a 2-minute drill situation. He had one nice one like a couple weeks ago where it wasn't in a 2-minute drill, where they moved the ball down. Some of the reasons that they've been unsuccessful are on him. Some of the reasons aren't, but that's how football goes. So I like where Trey Lance is. I like where the 49ers are right now. And it kind of brings
he's not elite yet. You know what I mean? Like I think all of us, or at least I believe he has the potential to be elite, but I'm not naive to think that he's elite at this moment. He still can be a little bit more accurate with the ball, even though I think some passes that people say are inaccurate aren't as bad as other people may think. But he's still shaky with the decision making, right? He still needs a little bit more touch with the short passes, but you saw the deep ball to Danny Gray. You saw, the ability now to slide. You're seeing some evolution in his game, Jack, and that's what you can only ask for from a young quarterback. That you're seeing things that we saw as mistakes last year now being rectified this year, right? We saw the slide. That was something that last year he was going head first into those tackles, right? We saw him a little more accurate in the preseason. We still see the accuracy with the deep ball. So, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, but I mean, we're not here to over promote and be like, yo, this is a top 7 quarterback in the league. He's not there yet, but we do believe by the end of this year, he's going to be good enough to where this team is going to be competitive. At least that's what I believe.
No, I agree with you. And one of my favorite things when it comes to Trey Lance, one of the things that I do like, I do appreciate about watching him play is this is a guy who it seems like he knows how to work the pocket. You watch guys like Kyler Murray, even Russell Wilson to an extent, where they like to bounce out and try to spill the pocket every chance they get. Trey Lance doesn't like to do that. He does it every once in a while, but he's much more subtle than Kyler Murray for sure. But I really like to watch. I really like the way that he climbs the pocket. When he's climbing the pocket, when the pressure's around him, he's always keeping his eyes down the field. You saw it on Friday night when Spencer Burford got beat. He kind of had to step up into the pocket instead of just taking off right away. He kind of stepped up to where he knew he was safe, turned his shoulders to get ready to throw. The whole time he had his head downfield. Then he didn't see it and took off. And so I like that. I like the fact that he's a guy that I had this discussion with somebody on Twitter where they were trying to say he's a running quarterback. And I said to him, no, that's not, he's not a running quarterback. He's a quarterback that can run. And he pointed to his stats at North Dakota State. And I think you got to go back and if you're thinking that he's a running quarterback back based on just his stats at North Dakota State, I think you need to go back and watch how North Dakota State operates their offense to understand why he ran the ball so much there.
The one thing, Jack, that I'm interested in seeing is we still haven't really seen the intricacies of how Lance is going to affect this running game. I remember last year's training camp, you were mentioning some things that you were seeing them, throw out there when Trey Lance was there. And, I know we're not supposed to talk about it and all that kind of stuff, but that's the part that I want to see because more than Trey Lance for me, Jack, this running game has to be one of the best running games in the league. They have to be top 10 to me, maybe even top 5 for this team to have the balance that they need to be successful on offense. Mm-hmm. That's the part that maybe worries me the most because obviously Elijah Mitchell isn't playing. So clearly they're going to be a lot better with him. Obviously McGlinchey and Trent aren't playing either. They're going to be better with them. But that's the part that all throughout training camp, we haven't really seen the explosion in the running game. Talk to me. You're there on the ground. Am I missing something? Do you feel like this running game can be prolific like they were in 2019, or is that a worry for you as well?
It's not a worry for me. I think it's going to be fine. I think that we're seeing big runs on a regular basis at camp. I've been putting them in my reports at least when I do see them. The problem on Friday night was a couple of missed blocks by the tackles. Both of them were by the right tackle. One time was McGlinchey. Their time was just in school. Those were the negative runs for Trey Sermon. And then you had a running back in Tyrion Davis-Price who was dancing around too much and he wasn't hitting the hole. And then you got the other guys in there who started hitting it. When you saw the guys that wanted to hit the holes, those were the guys who were picking up the big gains. You mentioned some of the stuff that I was kind of referring to last year where I didn't really get into it. Well, that's because they were running that during team was the only time they did it. Well, they popped it out this week. You talk about like some variations of it, and they did it when they knew the cameras were running. So,
oh wow,
if it's on my channel, you can see some of the stuff that they're doing over there. It's everybody knows that the 49ers run the zone read. That's not surprising to anybody, and this was a week, at least on Monday was a day that was heavy on Deebo Samuel and Ray McLeod playing running back the whole practice. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what they were working on. Really a triple option, is what they're running. And
right.
And they're, you put Deebo Samuel anywhere in motion into the backfield, and that causes trouble for the defense because that's where their eyes go. Now you got Trey Lance and his speed there. Those guys start getting ball and they start to take off like they're going to the edge. it's going to open up stuff the other way. And we saw a big hitter against the best the 49ers can put on the field right now, with exactly that the other day during practice on Monday, I guess it was. So
could I get a way too early prediction from you as far as how good this rushing attack will be?
it's going to be better than last year. Last year was middle of the road in terms of yards per attempt. It's going to be better this year.
Okay. Do you think top 10? Could it be top 2 like it was in 2019? Does it have that ability, or somewhere between 5 and 10?
It's going to be. I think it's going to be somewhere between. It could get to the 10s. The only problem that I see with this offense, and I talked about it when they drafted Tyrion Davis-Price, is I don't see a home run hitter in their backfield.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. That's why Deebo Samuel became such a big part of their rushing offense over the second half of the season, was they didn't have a home run hitter in there, and they still don't. And
do you think Elijah Mitchell, a healthy Elijah Mitchell, can be that guy? Because clearly he was nicked up last season, and they used him like a workhorse, so you can't really get the most efficiency as far as the burst and stuff like that. If they keep him fresher, he obviously has under 4.4 speed, right? So can he be that guy if he's utilized in a different way than they utilized him last season?
He could be that guy if his vision's better. I mean, there were times, there was a run, there were runs where he could have broke it if he just ran to the right place, right? I'm thinking about the play in Arizona where he's running, and then instead of continuing towards the pylon, he cuts it back up inside, that kind of thing. And there's more than one example of that, or the amount of times that he's running to the back of the offensive lineman instead of making the cut before he gets there, those types of things. So if he can do better at those, he's going to be fine. If you can give him a clear lane and it's just free sailing, he has the speed, but it's not. That's the difference. Like with Deebo Samuel, when he's in there, he sees things he just sees things better. He's able to kind of just weave his way through and stuff, and that's what's different. So,
well, hopefully Anthony Lynn, obviously was brought in here for a reason, and that's some stuff that maybe Anthony Lynn could pick up on and help him be just like a one cut guy instead of like, trying to do too much, right? Just keep it simple. Just see the hole, attack the hole, and get what you could get.
That's right. There you go. And I want to bring this one up real quick. This wasn't anything we talked about, but James was getting into it with somebody in the comments section. He says, Bolivar, best front seven in the league? Question. Bosa's elite, Warner's elite, everyone else is average. I know my opinion of this, in my opinion, this defensive line has a lot of question marks. I disagree with you, James, in that Nick Bosa makes everybody else on the defensive line better. Fred Warner makes everybody else around him better. Those guys are definitely elite. I think Azeez Al-Shire and Dre Greenlaw, they might be average, but when you put them all together, that's what makes it elite. It's when they're all together that's when it's elite. Right. If you take more, and that's the case with any. If we were talking about any top group in the NFL with any team, if you take out the best guy in those groups, then of course the entire group's not as good anymore, right?
Right.
And that's the case here with the defensive line. If you have Bosa, everybody kind of feeds off of that because Bosa draws so much attention. It's the same thing with Fred Warner. Fred Warner is so good. That's why I think partly why Al-Shire and the other guy are so much better, right? And then when it comes to
the D-line,
when it comes to the secondary, I think it's the same thing at safety. When you have a guy like Jimmie Ward, it allows you to have Talanoa Hufanga who's learning the ropes to be the other guy. I think those things go together.
Yeah, obviously Bosa's on a different level, right? Fred Warner is on a different level. I think Arik Armstead is on the cusp, right? I don't know if you put him in elite because when you're talking about Warner, Bosa, you're talking about top 3 at their position. I don't know if Arik Armstead is quite there yet, but he's damn good with or without Bosa there, right? Obviously, with Bosa there, he becomes a lot better. And really, you don't need a whole line and a whole front 7 of elite players. That's just not realistic. What you need are a couple of elite guys that, like you said, take the offense's attention. And then it's like, do you have guys that could beat people one-on-one? And I think the 49ers have quite a few guys that could beat people one-on-one, whether it be Ebicom, whether it be, Drake showing that he could, beat some guys one-on-one. Amena, who I think is somebody that could beat guys one-on-one. I mean, I think Javon Kinlaw is somebody that, if he stays healthy, could beat some guys one-on-one. So you don't necessarily need to be elite. The elite players are going to be like the Aaron Donalds, the Nick Bosas. These are guys that they're elite because they could still be productive even though they're getting double teamed, even though they're getting triple teamed. They could still make an impact on the game. That's one, and no team has 2, 3, 4 of those guys, right? You at most maybe have 2, but I think Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa are one of the two of the scariest guys on anybody's defensive line. I'd put them up there against anybody. I don't know if but I do think that the team has enough guys on the defensive line that could beat guys one-on-one. It's not like, even though last season, they still had pretty much same guys. I don't know if you think, DJ Jones is elite, or who's the guy who went to Jacksonville?
Key.
Say that again?
Arden Key,
right? I don't think anybody's looking at him and saying he's elite, but those are the only 2 people the team lost, and they still had, over 50 sacks, last season. So it's not about how many elite guys you have. Do you have guys that can beat people one-on-one, because they will have the opportunity? And I do think this defensive line has quite a few people that could beat people one-on-one, which is why I expect this defensive line to even be more impactful this season than they were last season.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be, as long as Bosa's there, it's going to be really good. If, Eric Armstead, now that he's been, kicked inside, that's putting him in the best position possible. And that's one of the biggest things about being a coach, is getting your guys put them in the best positions where they work best. Eric Armstead, I think, is a much better defensive tackle than defensive end. I really like him inside. Javon Kinlaw, Kevin Givens, that group of other guys that they have outside of those 2, that's a really good unit overall. So they've got a really strong defense across the board. Now let's get back to the one of the topics that I know we wanted to talk about. We're going to get to your question there, Ashley, about Jimmy Garoppolo, but we're going to do that a little bit later. What we're going to get into now is, when you start to look at the newcomers to the 49ers, or players who didn't have a role last season, didn't play last year, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact of those guys outside of Trey Lance? We all know Trey Lance is going to make the biggest difference, but beyond that, the biggest.
So guys that didn't play last year that are going to make the biggest impact this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can give me more. You can give me more than one if it's part of a group or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's going to be the secondary. I know you said that there's not much depth there because clearly all of our best guys are a little bit injured. But when you look at a guy like Charvarius Ward, and even a guy like Jason Verrett, who I hope comes back sometime mid-season that wasn't playing last season, those 2 guys come back, Jack, you're talking about an extremely elite secondary there, especially with Mosley playing the way that he is. Now, clearly, the biggest issue with them is going to be availability, right? Are these guys going to be able to stay healthy for a 17-game season and a deep playoff run? Right now, it's looking a little suspect, right? Non-contact injuries, soft tissue injuries, those aren't things that you want to see, especially out of a position that's so reactive and needs like so much athleticism to be successful at. But for me, I think that takes this defense to a different level where, we're going to talk about it. A loss of Jimmie Ward actually isn't felt as much because Jimmie Ward isn't going to be necessary as much to make up for the flaws of a secondary like there was last season. It's going to help that defensive line be able to get an extra half second, or I like when you say an extra hitch, right? Give them an extra hitch because they have guys that could play aggressive press man cover against anybody in the league and make the quarterback think twice about throwing that quick ball, giving a guy like Bosa, Omenahu, Ebicom, these guys an extra half second to be able to get to the quarterback and make them make a bad decision. So for me, it's the secondary. And, obviously a guy like Samuel Womack comes in and solidifies himself as the nickel. And, you saw what he was able to do. And obviously, it was a preseason game, but getting 2 interceptions. When's the last time we had a player on the team get 2 interceptions in any type of game, Jack? So it's like, to me, that's what that's the group that I think added the new pieces that's going to be the most impactful this season.
Dang, that's a good one. I somebody asked me that question earlier today, and I didn't even think about Charvarius Ward. So that was
that's why you bring me on, baby. You're not going to bring on somebody weak with no ability.
No,
you're going to bring the guys to elevate your game, brother, and that's what I'm here to do.
I'm saying you just blew my mind. That's a really good pick, because that is the case, because Charvarius Ward changes the way that they play defense. If they have Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Moseley together on the field, Emmanuel Moseley by himself is decent. Emmanuel Moseley with Charvarius Ward on their side, all of a sudden he's much better because of the way that they can play defense. Because when you've got Ambry Thomas or somebody else on the other side, it's not the same. So that's a really good one by you. I was going to say, I was thinking more along the lines of the rookies and those guys. So I was thinking like Sam Womack would be one of them. But I wasn't going to go with Sam Womack. I can understand if you're making it just for Samuel Womack, but the Charvarius Ward one, that one should be the winner. That's better than what I'm going to come up with. Because what I was going to say was it's going to be the interior of the offensive line, because you have 3 new starters in there. You've got Jake Brendel, you've got Aaron Banks, and right now it's Spencer Burford. Between those 3 guys, they have a total of 3 starts in the NFL.
Right.
And all 3 of those come with Jake Brendel.
Right.
Right. And the 49ers, I think, can win games even without them. This is why you're what you just said is better than what I'm saying, because I've said so many times with the offseason that I think it comes down, the quarterback can succeed. The 49ers can scheme around the offensive line to an extent. We saw him do it last year with Jimmy Garoppolo, who can't move as well as what you see from Trey Lance. So yeah, no, yours is better. I like the Charvarius Ward one. That's you get the if there was a bell or something that I can ring, like, to give you a point, you'd get the point for that one. Charvarius Ward is the biggest impact newcomer, and then behind that, I think you go to the interior of the offensive line after that, because the rest of the offense really isn't that much different.
Right. I mean, and I know I'm positive, Suneil, and maybe too optimistic at times. I really believe Jason Verrett's coming back, man. I really believe second half of the season he's going to be on the field. I don't know if as a full-time starter and spot duty, but I believe sometime throughout this season, whether it be late in the season, regular season, or in the playoffs, Jason Verrett's going to make an impact for this team. And, I think the guys on the team respect him. We've heard Charvarius Ward speak about how high he thinks of Jason Verrett. I think him coming back on the field could be a huge just boost of energy for a team that doesn't lack energy overall. You know what I mean? So I think that could take this team to a different level, whether it's just morale, Jack, or actually the level of play when he's on the field. Yeah, no,
that's all. That's really good. That was, I like what you put out there. That was a good one, man. Yeah, that was good. You win. and like Rohan said over here, he says, 49ers, according to Jack, Suneil has better opinions than me. You got that right. Suneil knocked that one out of the park. He even has me agreeing, saying that he's right. So he must have been right on that one. But that was good. I like the fact that I just completely had a brain fart on that one and missed it earlier today. When
I'm saying, man, the faithful. It's hard to see the forest within the trees. Everybody's focused on these trees, and they're forgetting that the forest, which is dominant right now. And so, yeah, man, I think, and you know what? I don't think you're wrong as far as the offensive line. I don't know if they're going to make as big of an impact as the cornerbacks, but they need to, right? They need to make a pretty big impact, because if they can't hold up their end of the deal, Jack, this is going to be, once again, another struggling offense. And let's be honest, last season, if this offense can move the ball and be more consistent in the first half of games, we're talking about a completely different season. You know what I mean? If this team wasn't playing from behind as much as they were in the second half of games, or putting so much pressure on their defense to keep the score down, where they could get like no breaks, this would have been a completely different season. So that's going to be big. It's not going to be just Trey's mobility can't be the reason why this offense does better. We have to have these guys step up, give him some time so he could go through his progressions and actually play the role the way that Kyle Shanahan wants him to play it.
Yeah, no. That's there's a lot of rookies too when you look at this team. I mean, Drake Jackson is a guy who, when we talked after OTAs and minicamp, I wasn't really all that impressed with him, but he's impressed me during training camp. He's somebody that I think has grown. You can see improvement in his game. The play that he made on Friday night where Love was trying to boot out to his side, and he overran it kind of and came back and was still able to get his hands on the ball and that kind of stuff. Just the athleticism there. It's fantastic. I think he's gonna have something there. I'm interested to see what Tyrion Davis-Price becomes, because this is a guy who's a big, strong, physical guy. That's what he's known for, and he's shown some good runs in camp. And then he got out there on Friday night. He had talked before the game about how excited he was to be able to go out there and really finish off some runs. And I saw a guy go out there on Friday night and just dance his way into the ground. It was just It wasn't at all what I was expecting to see from him. I was pretty disappointed in him. But the other rookies that they have, Marcelino McCurry-Ball, an undrafted rookie free agent, with a really nice play. He got the start because the other linebacker, the starting three linebackers weren't out there. That shows that he's right now the sixth guy in their depth chart when it comes to linebackers. He was right there to pick the pass off after the ball bounced off the Green Bay receiver. So really good stuff.
Give a shout out to Rohan and Marco. They've always been really high on the depth that the 49ers had at linebacker, and always brought up a lot of those undrafted free agents that the 49ers bring in at linebacker that end up becoming guys that play really well on special teams. A guy like Azeez Al-Shaair, undrafted free agent that came in and, a couple years later is making a big impact on the team. So could be a reason why maybe a guy like Flanagan Foles gets traded to give one of these undrafted rookies a chance to make the roster and still get an asset out of another guy that was drafted. I was an undrafted free agent. So gotta give props to those guys. They're really on top of a lot of the rookies that are undrafted for the 49ers.
Well, I think part of the reason why the linebacker crew is so good is D'Amico Ryans.
He was not that bad at linebacker, right, Jack? He was pretty good.
He was okay. He was okay. He was out there all right. So I think that's a big reason why so many of their linebackers play so well. Is they have a guy that they're coached by a linebacker, right?
Right.
And they've been coached by, and he's been doing that forever. And now he's their coordinator, even to the point where this guy's not a linebacker, but Sam Womack is going to have to be a linebacker at times if he's playing in the nickel.
Right.
And yesterday during practice, and I have some video on the channel. D'Amico Ryans spent time just with Sam Womack and with Deommodore Lenoir. Those are the two guys that they had practicing in the slot yesterday, working with them on their drops and zone coverage, and where their eyes are supposed to go and where their landmarks are supposed to be and all those kind of things. And so, it's Sam Womack is a guy that's going to be a player for this team, and to see the defensive coordinator spending time with just him and Deommodore Lenoir yesterday shows what the team believes in those guys, I think.
And it was really interesting, Jack, because you really, I think, initially believed that they were going to keep him on the outside, right? You felt like just because of his size, his ability, and his technique, like he was going to be outside. But he's been striving, he's been thriving over there in the slot. So it's good that you have another guy with that type of outside mentality that could still play inside. Clearly, K'Wan Williams is one of the best when it comes to tackling the run and stuff like that. That's gonna end up being, what can he perform at that level? But I do think he's more of a ball hawk than K'Wan. So, we'll see if he's able to make some more turnovers and if he could be at least average at run tackling, right? Because that's what's asked of the 49er nickel.
Yeah, when it comes to Womack, I always thought that he had the ability to play inside from a coverage standpoint. My question with him was always the ability to fit in the run game based on his size, and we didn't really get to see him attack the run game very much in the film from Toledo that I saw of him. So that was always my question there. But from a coverage standpoint, I never doubted his ability to play anywhere across. And then you're right in terms of me saying a lot that he was going to be more of an edge guy, because that's one of the things that John Lynch had talked about quite a bit. And I think, when you look at the roster, there's not a whole lot of need for him to play a lot of the edge. I think they really want him focusing on where they're, inside, because that's where they're going to play. Got to say that yesterday was the first time I had seen him line up outside as an outside corner since rookie minicamp.
Nice.
So they're rotating him in there a little bit too. I think as he gets more comfortable on the inside, they can slide him back outside too. It's a little bit different,
right.
But he's got the coverage ability. Put him in man coverage. Really good. Let's move off of the biggest impact newcomer. The other topic that we wanted to talk about was somebody mentioned it over here, was Jimmie Ward, and it's right here, the glass half full guy. Thank you for the super chat. You set us up perfectly. This was going to be the next topic anyway. So the Jimmie Ward injury, what do you make of that?
Yeah, so of all of the players on the 49ers defense, the one that obviously number one is going to be Nick Bosa. But after Nick Bosa, the guy that you didn't want to lose was Jimmie Ward. And just because of how much the level of experience and leadership drops from Jimmie Ward to the next player on the team, which is obviously Hufanga. So for me, that's a big loss, right? And it is something where we still aren't for sure how long this injury is going to linger, right, Jack? Like, it's a hamstring, right? And hamstrings, they're not something that just gets healed and doesn't keep coming up, right? And especially with a guy like Jimmie Ward, who, he had the interview with Grant this offseason where he talked about how much he thought that what his routine was and how he was taking care of his body was going to get away from these type of injuries and things like that. So to see this type of injury, hopefully it's something that can be completely healed. I personally, Jack, wouldn't want them to bring him back unless they're 100% sure he's not going to re-aggravate it. I would rather them hold him out if it means 2-3 weeks, get him fully healthy, because I would hate to have him play that in and out game where sometimes he's playing, sometimes he's not, sometimes he's playing. I think that's going to be more detrimental. As far as the solutions, the interesting thing is we talked about the corners before. The thing about Jimmy was he was like that safety net. And, one of the problems with losing Jaquiski Tart was they could be interchangeable, and we don't have that type of player to be interchangeable anymore. So obviously Hufanga is going to be a starter there. He plays a very specific type of safety. I want to get your thoughts on, I think the person that they should put in, because I think Jimmie Ward is still going to be kind of more of the coverage type safety. What do you think about starting Dante Johnson at the opposite safety instead of a guy like Moore or Odin? I personally think Dante Johnson can hold the fort down for a couple of weeks, still play what they need, especially with the elevated level of cornerbacks that we have. I don't know if you feel like that's just an idiotic take, but I think out of all of the guys that have been playing safety, I would probably trust Dante Johnson the most to start alongside Hufanga, because he's been on the team quite a while. He has the coverage ability, and he's maybe not elite at any position, but he's usually not the reason why the defense doesn't look good.
Yeah, I don't think it's an idiotic take at all. That's actually, I don't know if that's the direction they would go. They can't do it right now because Johnson's got the rib injury, so he can't practice. That was a name that Kyle Shanahan did mention on Tuesday or Monday. I keep forgetting my days now. That the training camp's completely ruined my schedule as far as knowing what day it is. But it was yesterday morning when he talked to us. He did mention Dante Johnson as somebody who could play in there, but the rib injury and all that kind of stuff. So then there might be an addition to that group to have another guy in there. Otherwise, it would be somebody that's a nickel guy that would slide back there that he mentioned. Which means that would be Quantrez Knight, who has played in the safety role in college. I think would be the one that would slide in there, just to kind of give them more bodies to be able to do it even right now during training camp. But the Ward injury is a big deal, and I agree with you. I'm sorry that I let you go first because you keep getting all the good points in tonight. But No, but that it is a big deal. Jimmy Ward, if Jimmy Ward's not healthy week one, I think they can get by. The bigger issue is you don't play him week one unless he's fully healthy. You don't want to put him out there and have him be going back and forth like you're talking about. Those hamstring issues, hamstrings can have a problem to kind of linger for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask Deebo Samuel in 2020 what that's like, right? So you need to be careful with it. If it means not playing week one, but week two he's good to go for the rest of the season, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I think they could get by maybe the first 2 games. I would rather have him healthy for week 3 because that's obviously in my eyes the biggest challenge or the first challenge. But I think they could get by missing out him for the first 2 weeks with who they have back there. And like I said, this is the benefit of upgrading your corners, because now Jimmie Ward isn't as much of a safety net as he needs to be, because you can trust your corners a lot more than you had been in previous years. So kudos to the 49ers for, inadvertently creating a solution to a problem that they probably wish they didn't have.
Yeah, no. And then there was a comment over here that I saw about people being excited about Dante Johnson. I got to say this really quick, just because I know that Dante Johnson's kind of been a punchline around 49ers Twitter, because how he just kind of comes and goes, it seems like, and the guy's been around in the 49ers for 9 years, but never really been solidified anywhere. Mm-hmm. His ability to play outside corner, nickel, and free safety, and do it at a high enough level for you to win games, that's extremely impressive. Now, it doesn't make me excited. It's not like I'm like, oh my gosh, Dante Johnson's going to start. Woo! No, it doesn't make me do that. Right? But I have a lot of respect for what Dante Johnson can do, because it isn't easy to play in the secondary in the NFL anywhere, let alone at all 3 spots. And
as a guy that isn't getting much run at any of those spots, right? He's going from practice squad to getting called up to and going in. And like I said, look, we've seen some guys in the secondary come up, be called up, come off the bench and just be atrocious. Jack, obviously I don't think Dante Johnson is like a Pro Bowler level by any imagination. And he's had his moments where it's like, but that's any cornerback, right? Even Jalen Ramsey and these guys are going to have plays where they get beat and stuff like that. But the level of play, he's the Brunskill of the defense, in the sense that, it's not somebody who you're like, it's the sexy pick to be in there, but you do feel comfortable that he's out there because you've seen him play, you've seen him have success. Now, do you want him to be your forever starter? I don't know about that, but if there's somebody to come in spot duty 1-2 games or whatever, I'm comfortable with Dante Johnson because I've seen him go out, play hard, make plays, and at least hold up his part of the game, like his focus on what he needs to focus on and play it to a decent enough level where it isn't a gaping hole, where I have seen other corners, other safeties be called up, Jack, and just be taking advantage, play after play after play after play, right? You don't see that from Dante Johnson where they're just picking on him, because he does play well. And, he's active as far as punching out the ball. He's created fumbles, you know what I mean? And he's, even though he hasn't necessarily been a full-on starter, Jack, he's been with this team a lot longer than some of these other guys as far as understanding the system, whether it be the practice squad or coming up and down. Like he's always here on a 1-year deal, but he's always here. And, I like him. And I don't know if like excited, but I trust him. Let me just put it that way. I do trust him. You could do worse.
Yeah, no.
And we have done worse. And we have done worse, Jack.
No. And the last part on that is the 49ers don't get as far as they did last year without him. You got to remember, he played in week 18. He started that game in the slot because of all the COVID stuff. He started that game in the slot. One of the safeties got injured and was out of the game at halftime. The second half of the game, he plays free safety. Then you go to Green Bay for the divisional round of the playoffs. Ambry Thomas is hurt. So who starts? Oh, Dante Johnson starts. And the 49ers hold the Packers to 10 points. I know the weather was rotten, but still, that was a heck of a defensive performance. Defensive line gets a lot of credit for it. But Dante Johnson, Ambry Thomas, doesn't matter. And so good stuff. Really quick, somebody asked about Taylor Hawkins. I think that's who this when they say you guys like Hawks. I think they're asking about Taylor Hawkins, the rookie. He's looked okay. I think I don't know if he's a guy that they'd want to have start, but he seems to be able to be okay in coverage. Rohan says Quantrez Knight struggled in coverage during camp, and I feel he might be a better fit currently at safety. Could be because he definitely has struggled in the slot, and I think that's probably why he wasn't working in there yesterday. And then Glass Half Full guy comes back with a second super chat. Thank you for both of the super chats. Says any free agent 49ers could bring in for the secondary. Well, the one name I'm going to throw out there really quick is Jamar Johnson, who just got released by the Denver Broncos. He was a draft pick just last year, and it was a name that I remember a lot of people around the 49ers Twitter community and so on and so forth that were looking at, guys that they could draft. Jamar Johnson was a name that a lot of people were mocking to the 49ers. He ended up going in the 5th round to Denver last year at 164, which seems to be kind of their number right in that ballpark of being able to find guys. So there's one name for you.
Yeah, I would kind of say, and I could be wrong on this one, Jack, but I would say if they do bring in another safety, that to me would be a red flag. That this situation is a little bit more dire than we think, because if we're talking about missing 1 or 2 weeks of the season, why wouldn't you go with guys that have been all through training camp, been here through the program, off-season program, all that kind of stuff? Why would you bring some guy that hasn't been with the team at all? That means that you're trying to bring some depth in because you think that this is going to be more of a long-term issue. So I think they stick with who they have. I think they have quite a few guys that can play the position, and hopefully it's not as dire of an injury where he's only missing 1 or 2 weeks. But yeah. I'm with you. Be conservative with it. Don't rush him back.
I wouldn't look too much into it if they were to bring in somebody. They got 85 guys on the roster. They're going to have to cut some guys here or there anyway. If you need somebody, if you don't feel comfortable with one of those back end guys, get somebody in here that can give you a look, and maybe that guy hooks on with the practice squad or something like that.
When's the next cut?
I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. Next week at some point.
When do they have to get down to 53? Is that like at the end of this month?
That's at the end of the month. That's the 30th, I believe. They play their last preseason game on the 27th, and I think it's the 30th. I don't know what day that is. I think it's a Monday.
It's going to be interesting.
And that's the big day too, when it comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo and what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo is when that final cut down date comes and that kind of thing. So that brings us to our last topic, and Ashley asked about it earlier. Still got a few minutes left to go before we close the show out. But hey, there was a report that came out last week from Mike Silver about Jimmy Garoppolo ghosting the 49ers. And then I saw where the guys on the radio out at 95.7 The Game were talking about how they don't believe that report. And I'll let you go first, and you give your take, and then I'll give mine on this whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think this is necessarily like breaking news. Like I think that I don't think people, when they think of Jimmy Garoppolo, they think of him as like super personable. I think that, he is a guy that's kind of to himself. And even though he builds good relationships with his teammates, in the offseason, he's not, partying with these guys. You don't see him, with George Kittle and Juszczyk and all these guys like you've seen in the offseason, even with Trey, how much time he spent with his teammates. So I don't think it's anything that's like surprising. The thing that is surprising to me, Jack, is, I think the 49ers are one of the best organizations where they don't let stuff leak, right? If things are out there, it's because they want them out there, right? And I have been somebody that was like, there will be no Jimmy G slander from the 49ers from this point on, when they decided, months ago about Trey Lance, and just because they wanted to trade him. The fact that there's Jimmy G slander coming out, to me, is a signal that the 49ers have given up on thinking that there's a way to trade this guy, and he's going to be cut before the final roster cuts to save whatever money they can save on the cap.
That could be true. I didn't find the report to be anything that I hadn't heard already. Kyle Shanahan is on record. He said it at the podium that he can't get a hold of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not I mean, he has said that in press conferences, that getting a hold of Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason is tough. That he you know, season's gone and poof, you know, he's like Kaiser Sose, poof, he's gone.
I think the biggest thing though was that things changed when Trey came in, right?
No, it's been that way all along, because even George Kittle has talked about that in the past.
No, but in the article, it talked about how he started responding more when Trey came in.
Sure. Okay.
I think that's a big thing. I think that's something different, right? Because then he was choosing to do this kind of stuff. It's not just he couldn't be that way. Like he realized when there's competition that you know, I need to, you know,
sure,
be all in kind of thing. So I think that to me was the part that was a little bit different that we hadn't known.
Need to be all in, or there's a heightened sense of knowing
urgency,
that you need to be, whatever. Yeah. And I didn't have a problem with it either way. If Kyle Shanahan has a problem with it, that's fine, because he's the one that's involved with it. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, my days of work are, here's my set days that I'm supposed to be in contact with you. I'll talk to you when I show up in Santa Clara. I don't need to be texting you all the time. Otherwise, I'm working out, because I'm working out on my own. We know that Jimmy Garoppolo always came to camp prepared. Right. We just never saw it, and that was one of the things I said last year during the offseason.
Well, did he? Did he come in prepared? I mean, he's a notorious terrible practice player.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't prepared. That just means there's all kinds of things when it comes. Okay, you just hit on a topic that we're going to come back to that one, because I can talk for about a half an hour just on what you just said right there, based on
just no restrictions, so we could go
because you and I haven't talked since training camp goes, so you haven't heard Jack get pissed off about the way
practice plays.
No, not even the practice plays, but the way that some of the stuff has been
the narratives that are being created.
The narratives and the way that 49er fans are reacting to the coverage of camp this year at times. But Jimmy Garoppolo, we know that he always came in. Did he screw up in camp? Yeah, but he was always healthy when he was there. He always showed up in shape. He was always whatever. I didn't mean that as far as his how well he played, but you know what I'm saying. He was always there. He was ready to go.
Right.
He was always on top of his thing. I mentioned that last year during the training camp when Trey Lance was getting videos posted of him and people were going all crazy about it, that, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo might want to post a couple of videos of himself working out just to kind of balance the scales out a little bit.
Right.
Here. But that's just not the guy he is. Now, as for the Jimmy Garoppolo practice stuff, I'm just going to say this real quick. Like, you know, we put the reports out there about, you followed me, so you know what I put out there. You know, you see how I put the stats out there. And people get all pissed off about it and whatever. But nobody complained about it last year. Not one person complained when all that we were putting out there was the numbers, because the numbers were positive towards Trey Lance and not Jimmy Garoppolo as much. And then now everybody's worried about context. Here's the one thing that I will say, like when Trey Lance has had a bad day and he throws an interception or he throws a bunch of incompletions, what I keep hearing is, well, he's testing out the defense. It's practice. It's time to try new things. It's time to find out how much he can go, right? What did Jimmy Garoppolo say when he was throwing interceptions in practice? It's practice. We're trying.
Welcome to Subway.
Dude, shut up. But he was saying the same. He was saying the same thing that all the 49er fans are saying now about Trey Lance, right?
Right.
He's like, hey, it's training camp. This is our time to practice.
I think the only difference, Jack, why you're getting so much and I think it's unwarranted hate, because I've seen it. It's just because I think people can group you into like the other narrative, because there is this national narrative that for some reason happened where everybody was piling on Trey Lance, and you mentioned that it wasn't warranted. So I think that got some of the faithful extremely sensitive to where if anything can be construed in a bad light from Trey about Trey, they're going to jump on whoever created that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to stick up for my guy, Jack. One, he's a troll. So understand that he does it in a way that's very low key, that people don't realize that he's actually trolling, right? But he loves instigating. It's a little bit under the wraps, right? I might be taking you behind the curtain. He puts those stats out there knowing you're going to get emotional. So how you not get emotional? just don't react. Just don't react. But you know what? We know you're going to react because Jack is too good at what he does. Go read it at the 49ers.pressdemocrat.com.
Hey.
Go get emotional. Click on his articles. Click on his Twitter. Retweet that. Make him out to be the devil. But I'm telling you guys, he's a good guy.
Well, there's
nothing malicious.
There's a couple of things about it. Like, I don't put that out there. I don't put his numbers out there just to get a reaction. I'm putting those numbers out because to me, it's interesting. Like the one that everybody got really pissed off at me about was when I put his training camp numbers from last year up against this year. Right. That's the one that got everybody fired up. I just did that because I just found that interesting. I was like, well, this guy's a lot lower than he was last year. And I know he's a lot lower than where Jimmy Garoppolo was last year. I know there's, I understand. I know I can go through and tell you what all the excuses are if we wanted to go through what I feel like are excuses. I also feel like there's some throws that
not excuses, reasons.
Yeah,
it's not an excuse. It's just a reason. Like, this is why this is happening.
Yeah, but no, it's fine. Like, the only thing really with Trey Lance right now where he's struggling is he struggles with the deep out. We saw that in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But he threw a really nice one yesterday to Debo.
I like that he misses wide though, and that because he at least misses in a way that's not.
It's not just wide though. It's not just wide though. You saw it wide, but he's missing those high and behind too. But
what I'm saying is, I think he's throwing. If he's missing in a position that at least the ball's still safe from being a turnover, right? So that to me, if you're gonna miss that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unlike, and I know I don't want to trash Jimmy, but like when Jimmy misses, it turned into a turnover. So it's nice that do we want to see him more accurate and hit that? Absolutely, but at least he's missing safely. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So
I do have a question for you though, Jack. Do you think that the fact that this actually went national, right? Because the reason why I brought it up to you today is I saw it all over First Take. I saw it all over FS1. I saw it all over ESPN, right? Skip's talking about it. What's his name? Emmanuel Ancho, who for some reason has it out for. I have no idea what Emmanuel Ancho's relationship is with Jimmy Garoppolo and that crew, or what he has against the 49ers. But do you think that the fact that this is like big news, right? Because 49ers aren't known to have this type of drama, right? Is that a sign to you that Jimmy's just gonna get cut at this point? They're not sugarcoating it. Nobody wants him. Nobody's calling down the phone, like offering anything. Like, we thought it would be Cleveland. We thought maybe the Jets. Both of those situations, it doesn't seem like they're as interested as what people may have thought. I personally think he gets cut. What about you?
Yeah, unless something happens when Cleveland or a quarterback gets hurt, I don't see any reason why a team's going to trade for him at this point. Even right now he's good to go. That he can, if the team wants him, they can come and get him, and he could probably go out and practice for him today. Mm-hmm. And nobody's making that move. And I don't think that there's going to be a team that all of a sudden is going to be changing their mind and saying, this guy's been out here. We're a month into training camp or 3 weeks into training camp. Well, let's go ahead and get him now. Whatever. I just don't see it happening. So the only way I think it happens is if somebody gets hurt or Deshaun Watson gets suspended for the majority of the season or the entire season. But beyond that, I don't think.
Yeah, and at that point, I think they play bluff and just we could rock with Jacoby Brissett, and eventually you're going to cut Jimmy. I don't think anybody believes Jimmy's coming back to the 49ers in a 49er uniform week 1.
No, I don't. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't even practice with the team. He doesn't show up. Jimmy Garoppolo is a part of the 49ers because he's on their roster.
Right.
But he's as small a part of the 49ers as you could possibly be. He is
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Have you seen the movie? Have you seen the movie Office Space?
I have, a long time ago, so I might miss the reference.
You know the guy that's always looking for a stapler?
Yeah.
That's Jimmy Garoppolo. that character is Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy who's in the building. Nobody really knows where he is. he's like in the basement somewhere or whatever, but he's in the building and he's there every day and leaves every day, but they don't really know where he is. That's kind of where he is on the roster right now, because he's not a part of the team in any way in terms of going to meetings. He's not in Minnesota with the team now. He's just not. So it's a Jimmy Garoppolo ghosted the 49ers in the past, and the 49ers are ghosting him now.
Right. It's definitely an amicable breakup, but a little nasty. But at least it's not all up in the news, right?
Yeah, sure, exactly. At least there wasn't some kind of crazy thing happening, I guess.
Right.
So it was a good divorce between the two. When it happens, I guess they can wave to each other and blow kisses as they get down.
I think they did what they needed to do. At the end of the day, you look at it, I think Jimmy's stock is much better, obviously, for being the 49ers starting quarterback. I think the 49ers have been better off for having Jimmy Garoppolo there. I think he definitely helped change the culture. But, it's time for Trey. And I'm one of those guys that respects Jimmy for what he did for the team. I'm not one of these guys that thinks he's like, this superhero quarterback. I think that he's really needs the right type of pieces around him to be successful. But I do think that he's a class act as far as never really created too much drama in a very, very difficult situation with how Kyle Shanahan flirted with every single quarterback, even though Jimmy Garoppolo was on the squad. So I'm a big fan of him for that. But bon voyage, Jimmy. You got a couple more weeks with the 49ers.
Yeah, I think you're right. So that's it. That is it for tonight. That is our show. I want to before we close out though, really quick, Suneil, what do you got going on? You said you're gonna have that punk kid that was over in our comment section earlier.
Yeah, little brother Rohan Chakravarti. We're getting back to it tomorrow at 7 p.m. West Coast time. So we're gonna be having a great show, like we always do. Rohan brings it. I don't know what's going on the rest of the week. Maybe pop in a little bit here and there. Definitely, if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, it's at So Real Sports Talk TV. If you're on Twitter, you can just go to my handle, which is right here, and you can click on the link and get there. You can find me anywhere at So Real Suneil. But I do want to promote one of our guys. Jesse has a big show that's coming on in a few minutes here as well.
It's already 42 minutes in, my man.
Oh, okay. Well, now that you guys we're done, go head over to Jesse. He's obviously interviewing Trey Lance's former coach. So,
yeah, no, he is. No, they started at 6:00, but we had a pretty good group in here. And I want to say thanks to everybody who took the time to watch the show. Everybody who took the time to comment. The super chats were nice. It actually kind of led us right into our next topic. So thank you all so much, Suneil. Thank you for joining. And then this Rohan Chakravarti guy, I don't know who he is, but he keeps popping up in here. He says the disrespect, I'm blocking you. I like that guy. I'm going to have to get somebody over here said I need to get him on, and I will. And then somebody over here hit it, and that's right. Jimmy Garoppolo is Milton from Office Space. There you go. Wow. Boom. There's a tweet that's going to come out at some point tonight, if I can remember it.
Jack said.
Yeah, the 49ers according to Jack.
According to Jack.
Is Milton from Office Space. Thank you for that, big nasty. But yep, that's it for the show. Thank you all so much. Before you head out, if you guys can do me a favor, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. I didn't have my guy over here reminding me repeatedly to go to remind you guys of it. So
eventually you got to get independent, Jack. You can't keep.
Hey,
you can't be dependent on the toolbox.
No, I know. At some point you gotta grow up. So I understand that. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Get yourself over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com, as Suneil, also known as Vanna White, is doing such a good job of pointing that out. Thank you all so much. Take care. I will be back. I'm going to be on tomorrow with Larry Kruger on his channel at 4:00, and we'll see about what happens on mine tomorrow. Might pop in if I can get some information on 49ers practice. I have severe FOMO right now. But I will be in Chicago for week 1. So take care, everybody. I'm going to head out. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Talk to you soon.